Well, what was a moment in your time where you had probably the scariest moment in an F-16 for you? Something that like immediately
I,
pops in your head.
ironically, there's two things, and it goes back to landing. I think, did you guys do the Owensboro, Kentucky air show?
Hmm. With
So
the
I think it
bridge.
was, I didn't almost hit the bridge. You guys might have almost hit the bridge. I came back because we flew at the same. Oh no, you flew the year after me. I think I was the only jet there, but there's not a lot of great. It's like 49 miles to Louisville, and it's 48 miles to another 10,000 foot runway. So the way the Viper demo regs are written, you have to have an 8,000 foot runway, and then you have to have a resting gear within 50 nautical miles, or like
Hmm.
a 10,000 foot runway. The
Hmm.
Raptor has to have an arresting gear. So a little bit looser for the old Viper there. But I came back, and this is actually the second time it happened. You were there for the first time. It was in New Orleans, but I had a brake failure. So in New Orleans, there was a cable, and I
I
was able
think
to.
I
Yeah,
remember that. I
I
remember.
took the departure in cable. So you're like, yeah, why don't you guys take the approach in cable? Like, hey, taking a cable in an Air Force jet is a significant emotional event. I don't want to hear it. So it was Owensboro, Kentucky, 8,000 foot runway. It's not like a big runway. It's out in the middle of nowhere. And like always, I'm coming back and I don't have any gas to mess around with. Like I can skyhook it. I'm gonna be the wrecking ball emergency coming into Louisville.
Yeah.
But I land, I touch down, and I didn't recognize that. So this is the same thing in New Orleans. As you're on final, usually doing the demo, you're gonna get a master caution for low fuel, like punch it off. Like it's kind of
Yep.
habit pattern, and
Very
then
used to
it'll
that.
go off, and then it'll come back on, punch it off again. So I get that, but as I touch down, now master caution, no oral tone associated with it. But as I air brake to 100 knots, put the nose down, step on the brakes, nothing happens. Like this is not where you want to go. So like two options. One, just no, don't go into AB because you're probably gonna
Yeah,
flame
yeah,
out.
you're gonna
Go
flame
mill
out
power,
right on
go
the
around,
top.
sort it out. I quickly switched the brake channel. So we have brake channel 1, brake channel 2. I switched it to 2, and it goes into alternate braking mode, which I think is upwards of 50% degraded. And there's no like anti-skid. I'm probably butchering that. But nonetheless, I'm going down the runway, and it's just like it's biting somewhat, but it's taking forever to slow. I mean, I stopped like in the last like 200 feet of the runway. I'm just like, and there's like the I think it was Aeroshell guys were out there and they had video of it. Like, yeah, you were smoking the tires all the way down. I'm like, yeah, there's no there's no anti skid, and I'm just trying not to go off the end of the runway. Guys tow me in, and I'm like on the phone with my boss, like, hey boss, jet's okay, but my brakes work or didn't work, and now we're going to send a team out to fix them. Subsequently, they sent the team out to fix it. The guys came out the next morning, and the jet was like cockeyed. Like one of the struts had failed too. So they sent like a semi truck worth of equipment to fix that jet. I was like, whoa, I'm glad it didn't like it was concurrent, but it was unrelated to the brake failure. But it was just like, oh yeah, this is great. So that was one. I definitely had a couple in combat where it was like snowing. I had all my ordnance still in the jet, high gas for divert fuel. Winds were kicking. The runway we were at wasn't great. And it's just coming back, the blood pressure is like through the roof. Again, I sound like a wimp compared to you talking about sea state and stuff, but dude, the landing stuff, man, when it's like night, you can't see anything, you're in the weather, you're fighting like spatial disorientation. It's at the end of 8 hours of flying, and you're like, all right, man, I might have to divert to whatever field. And this is the fun part too. On our deployment, I was in charge of like all the approach plates and stuff, and managing that, and like divert packs. We had one field in Jordan that we didn't like, you couldn't find any approach plates for, but it was one of our diverts. And then we finally found a TACAN approach from like 1994. And so if you just like, I'm like, all right, I have magnetic variation. I know that changes. If you did, it was like 23 degrees or something like that. It swung, in that time period. It's crazy. But dude, yeah, it's wild. But
I
I think
distinctly
those
remember.
probably two.
I remember in Vero Beach. It was let's see, it's 2018. The weather was down. It was low, and Biggs and I were setting up. It was 5 and 6. We were about. See, I think we were doing. I think the 4-point, I forget what maneuver we were doing. And so we were beak to beak, and the diamond was coming from behind the crowd. And there was an overcast layer of maybe 1,000 feet or so, slightly above. And our divert, kind of the same thing of what you just said, was down in Avon Park, which was a ways away in the range, which was a VFR only divert. And so I didn't think anything of it. But then out of nowhere, about 3 miles crowd left of the field, I hit what we call the $1 million Pelican. Never saw it, but just immediate explosion. Left motor totally exploded. Just boom. I looked down, freaked out, shit my pants. Just kidding. But I'm like, oh God, what just happened? And I know I'm beak to beak with number 6 right now. And I looked down to see if I needed to immediately divert, because if it's the right engine, we got to go. Like, there's no choice, no chance. Like, just get over there, put your hook down, manually blow the gear down, and then take a trap out in Avon Park. It was a left engine, thank God. I thought I hit a drone because how hard the jet torqued when the engine immediately ceased, because I was up on power. There's a pretty famous video on the internet about it. Somebody captured the video and did a great job with it. And as the engine exploded, I looked down. It was 1,300 degrees on the temp. It was RPM 0. And I took about just a few seconds. I'm like, all right, I'm still beak to beak with 6. I know the diamond's over here to the right. I can bleed off as much energy as I can. Just say feed's clearing behind the crowd. And Biggs, your solo, he goes, Biggs does his thing, does flawless, picks up the show as a single ship, does his thing. And I bled off as much energy behind the crowd left. And I told Utah, I said, hey, feed's going to land below you, because at this maneuver, the diamond was about to take up all this airspace. So there's going to be jets everywhere. And I told Utah, I said, feed's going to land below you, beak to beak. And then typical Utah fashion, he's like, Utah. So I think he was going out like 150 feet right over my head. I'm at 75 feet below him coming into land. And it was totally flawless. We land. Maintenance guys go, hey, feed, what's going on? I said, look down the left engine when I pull in. They're like, oh my God, you totally annihilated this motor. What did you hit? I'm like, I have no clue. Something really bad happened. I didn't even think I hit a bird. I couldn't tell. I thought maybe it was catastrophic failure or hit a drone or something. And then after we had taxied, done the show and whatever, and come out, people said, hey, you're the guy. I'm like, what guy? Like, yeah, there's a video of you hitting a bird. I'm like, can I please have that? Oh my gosh, I'd love to see that. Sure enough. I mean, it knocked off one of the vortex generators and just ping ponged through the motor and just completely annihilated the engine. So that was one of those moments like what you were saying. It's like, oh my gosh.
You win. The video is epic. I mean, you had like a 60-foot flame coming out the back of the motor. It was like, whoa. And then you go idle.
At the end of the movie, it's all about, motivating kids, right? Because I was a happy kid at the end of that video. He's like, hey, I saw fire. It was cool.